Welcome to the Enterprise Excellence Podcast, where our purpose is to help create a better future. Learn from our world's experts how to improve your organization sustainably. Learn how to achieve and sustain an excellence journey for yourself, others, and the planet.
And I'm your host, Brad Jevons, coming to you from Brisbane, Australia. We are proudly brought to you in association with SA Partners, a world-leading business transformation consultancy. SA Partners are a truly purposeful company focused on helping organisations achieve sustainable improvement for themselves, others, and the planet. Welcome to episode 70 of the Enterprise Excellence Podcast. It is such a pleasure to have Dr. Jeff Sutherland back on the show with us today. Jeff, together with Ken Schwaber, are the founders of Scrum, or Agile, as many call it. Jeff is the author of the book, Scrum, The Art of Doing Twice the Work in Half the Time, and the book called A Scrum Book, The Spirit of the Game. Jeff is back on the show with us today to talk about Scaling Scrum, how to create an agile organisation using Scrum at scale. Jeff has had an amazing career which you can learn about in episode 6 of the podcast. Let's get into the episode. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us today.
Great to be back talking with you. Looking forward to it.
Thanks, Jeff. Jeff, in episode 6, we looked at your amazing career you've had, and it was brilliant. And I can see how everything tied together to lead to what you created and what you're doing now. But what are you focused on moving forward, Jeff? What's your vision moving forward from here?
Well, the thing that I've been focused on right now is the difference between agility and business agility. Because business agility makes the stock prices go up, and we have companies we're working with now who, because or despite the COVID lockdown, their stock prices are going to the moon. Mm-hmm. And other companies, thousands of other companies, are going bankrupt. So I'm really focused in on what is the difference with companies that are amazingly, incredibly successful and the ones that are just going bust in the current environment. And there are very significant differences. And an agile team is only a piece of that picture, a very small piece. Having agile teams in IT does not make you a winner. The whole organization has to be agile in today's environment.
Yeah. And when did this start to really fall into place for you, Jeff? Where you just started to see these companies where they had a smattering of agile teams out there, and then you started to work with these organizations where you actually created a complete agile organization?
Well, I think it was back in 2016 we got serious about it because the leadership at Intel cornered me at a conference, and they said, we've been implementing scaling frameworks at Intel, and they have actually slowed us down. Intel has a huge number of Scrum teams. Just in one division, they had 500 Scrum teams. And they told me it's so bad that the senior management has thrown out all scaling frameworks. And they've said, we can't use the word Scrum anymore inside Intel. It's a dirty word. And they asked me, what should we do? Number one, but also they blame me for these scaling frameworks that don't work. So that was the motivation to start to write down Scrum at Scale, which is designed to create an organization that can be extremely successful. And at the same time, we had the situation in Japan where the senior management of one of the biggest companies in Japan came to us and said, the training in Japan today is not sufficient to lead the industry forward in Japan. They said, we are, Toyota has a major ownership stake in our company. We're going to be the trainers at Toyota. We need a significantly better training program. And that started us into building what we now know as the registered Scrum program, the Agile Education Program. We built it initially for the Japanese so that they could actually go into Toyota and make Toyota significantly better. And it's a big challenge because right now, another company who we've done some work with, Tesla, is crushing all automobile vendors, including Toyota. And the good news is that because Toyota has been open to agile transformation enough. If you look at Toyota's stock price today during COVID, it's going up, and all the other traditional vendors' stock prices are going down. So it's not enough to compete with Tesla yet, but it is a survival. It's a good survival. But right now, I don't think people fully understand. Tesla is worth 4 times as much as Toyota.
Yeah. Wow.
They could just buy Toyota. They could just buy and take over Toyota. Any moment they wanted, they could just buy enough stock and start running Toyota.
Yeah.
People don't understand the impact that having this tremendous market capitalization and access to the capital markets, the effect that it can have on a whole industry. And the companies that are really agile, if you look at the top companies, just yesterday I sent around to our trainers, okay, here's the 50 largest companies and most successful companies in the world. And what do you get? You get, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, Google. Those are the top. Those are all incredibly agile companies. I mean, at Microsoft, every tool is built by Scrum and designed to be used by a Scrum team, 100%. And so they're totally dominant. And you go down a little further and you get into the Facebooks of the world, and you get into a lot of the companies that we're working with, like the oil companies and the steel companies and the banks. The ones that are actually surviving and successful all have agile transformations going on in them. I mean, it is absolutely critical today to have a successful agile transformation to compete with the top companies in the world.
Yeah. Jeff, that must be such a proud point for you too, but you've been working on Scrum and Agile for a long time. Your whole career virtually has been evolving to create Scrum. And then you can sit here now and look back at that top list, and it's like, wow, that's a pretty good outcome. I don't know if you would have predicted that when you first started.
It's a great outcome, but it's far from over because there's so much work to be done. If you look at the data on how well agile teams are doing, 58% of them are late, over budget, unhappy customers. If you look at how agile transformations are doing, 53% of them are not meeting what the management hoped to achieve. And there are definite reasons for that. And so in our Registered Scrum program, we actually are going through, here's the reasons that will cause you to fail, and here's specifically what you need to do to be successful. And we know exactly how to do it. And to train people how to do that, it needs a lot more than the Scrum Guide, okay? The Scrum Guide is fundamental, but that's like the beginning. Actually doing it requires a much higher level of skill than just going to a training session on the Scrum Guide.
Yeah. And Jeff, with it, I know personally, because I'm involved, heavily with Scrum at Scale and everything that Scrumming's doing. But I know that the scaling Scrum approach, Scrum at Scale, is so important. There's so many elements in that framework, plus the patterns, of course. But Scrum at Scale is such an important element to lead to sustainability, isn't it? Because it's actually connecting the whole organization on the journey and creating patterns and rhythms that enable the journey to keep going and to be effective across the whole organization.
Yeah, I mean, Scrum at Scale, the reason it's different than other scaling frameworks is, number one, it's an enterprise framework. Number two, it involves the management, which is essential in participating in the Scrum. And three, it's based on how does Microsoft work? How does Apple work? How does SAP work? How does Intel work, even though they're in a big trouble right now? All these companies that have hundreds of thousands of Scrum teams that are the leading companies in the world, how do they do that at scale? And, an IT scaling framework is not enough. You need a much bigger vision, a much bigger picture. You need to be tackle an entire enterprise. That means you need to have, you have to look at the enterprise as a set of components. Just like we build our hardware systems today, like an iPad where you can plug and play and upgrade pieces, and the organization needs to be a plug and play organization where we can upgrade components while keeping the whole system running, and we can pick the most important thing to upgrade next. And so that systematically, with the least amount of work, we can get the maximum effect on the performance of the organization. And I tell you, very little has to do with IT anymore. IT is not the problem. One of the reasons, if you look at John Deere's stock price, it went up during COVID more than Amazon's.
Wow.
John Deere is one of the biggest and oldest farm equipment company in the world. How did they do that? Well, they started implementing Scrum Scale in logistics, in purchasing. Okay, those are the things that make companies win in the market. And it's nice to have the IT be agile, but they're not enough to, build and ship the tractors, okay? They're not enough to contract with the hundreds of vendors that got to build pieces of those tractors, right? It's a bigger picture, and the Scrum Scale is designed for that bigger picture.
Yeah. Jeff, the one thing that I find amazing is, we talk about the broader enterprise rather than just IT. And when I deal with a large organization, there's one thing that often I can gauge where they're at is I can go to the frontline employees and I can go to them and talk to them and I go, what happens when an impediment comes up? And if the frontline employees say to me, I tell my boss, and how's that go? We often don't hear about it. They just forget about it. Nothing goes on. I know there's going to be real challenges there. When I go to a team that's further down the maturity and I go, what happens when you got an issue or an impediment? We raise a user story, or we raise a concern strip. And what happens to it? It goes on our board and we're backlogging it. And okay, cool. And we're going to execute it. What happens if you can't handle it? We send it up to the next level, to the scaled Scrum, the Scrum at Scale team. Okay. And what happens then? And that's the key. Sometimes, Jeff, you still hear, it's slow. But if you hear it gets dealt with quickly, or if it can't be, I hear back fast and I'm hearing why quick. That team and that part of the organization is pumping. And it's such a simple thing, but I know that's a key element of Scrum at Scale, isn't it? Is connecting the teams to be able to.
Well, we know, Standish Group, that has more data than anyone else on particularly the software domain. The CEO came to me the summer before the COVID lockdown. We had coffee, and he said, Jeff, we've been studying for 3 years, what is it that makes Scrum work? And we've taken our more than 1 million projects, we have hundreds of data points on each project, and we've tried to figure out what's the secret for a really successful company. And he says it turns out to be the time it takes to make a decision. If decision time is an hour or less, success rate is almost 70%. If it takes 5 hours or more to make a decision, the success rate drops to below 20%. And what you just described is the team that gets the immediate escalation so that they can get an answer, even if it's not a final solution, in an hour or two, compared to the team that has to wait days or forever to get the management fix something they can't fix. That is the total difference between failed company and successful company, right? people talk about Scrum and they debate about Scrum and the things in Scrum, and it's, they need to step up a level and understand it's all about decision time. So how long does it take you to decide to actually fix something when something happens? Scrum is a tool that makes that really fast. Scrum at Scale allows you to do it for an entire enterprise. And so all the discussions around whether this part of Scrum is good or bad or should be there or whatever, you need to relate that all into how fast do decisions get made, do results get delivered, right? And there's way too much philosophizing in the industry, Every Agile coach has a great Agile opinion. But they have no data showing whether that makes the decisions faster and the result and the delivery quicker. You don't hear them talking about that. It's all hand waving, okay? So what we need to go back to real data, and this recent publication that we did with Rocket Mortgage, the biggest mortgage company in the United States. We went in there with Scrum at Scale. They had one of the biggest SAFe implementations in the world. Within a year, it was going 4 times faster. We didn't throw out SAFe. We kept it, but we changed all the roles. SAFe had 15 roles. They cut them to 3, which is what Scrum has. SAFe had a whole bunch of meetings. Some were unnecessary. They were in the wrong order. They didn't have a delivery focus. All those meetings were streamlined and focused. And then they went after every piece of the organization, as we do in prioritizing within Scrum at Scale, our impediment removal, our process improvements, and made it go incredibly faster. And they went from delivering every quarter to delivering every day. So that's a good company today could deliver a new release every day.
Yeah, well, that's
Microsoft
impressive.
does that. Amazon does that. All the best, Google does that. All the best companies do that. So any company that's still talking about it takes weeks or months to get a new feature in front of a customer, those companies are destined to fail.
Yeah.
So,
and it's so insightful that you said, Jeff, too, that a lot of it just comes back to decision latency. What is that time to make a decision?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to me. It actually turns out to be incredibly simple. Particularly the IT guys, they tend to overcomplexize anything. I remember a good example. I mean, you were in a group where we had some people from EMC there. I used to trade EMC. They were the biggest disk drive manufacturer in the world, and they still are, but they don't exist anymore because they weren't agile enough. But when I was trading them, they had thousands of people doing Scrum. But if a developer had a laptop that broke, it took purchasing 6 months to get them a new laptop. And I told them, you are going to fail because no matter how agile you are, down in the factory there, if up at the top purchasing takes 6 months to make a decision, you're doomed.
Yeah.
And sure enough, they've been taken out. They've been taken over by a much more effective company, Dell. And the investors, it wasn't the management of Dell. The investors said, "You guys are going to do Scrum at Scale because that's where the money is, right? That's what they're going after."
Yeah.
So there's another company. You look at Dell stock price; it's going to the moon, right? During COVID, another company that COVID just made them explode in terms of value. So Scrum at Scale is a really good tool, but figuring out how to turn it into the value creation is really the central issue today.
Yeah. Over the last 10 years, most organisations have performed well. Some performed amazingly. Many of our highest performing organisations have used Agile and Lean Six Sigma to create agile organisations. Organisations where continuous improvement and innovation are part of their DNA and culture. We're now in highly uncertain times. Fluctuating demand, labour scarcity, prices and costs are rising, new challenges every day. Many organisations are caught in this whirlwind, this constant noise, finding it hard to break out and put time into creating a performance culture and executing strategies for the future. Jeff Sutherland often talks about a scene from the Matrix movie where Morpheus offers Neo a red and blue pill. The red pill to enter the Matrix, the blue pill to go back to sleep. Unfortunately, most organisations and people trained in Agile or Lean Six Sigma take the blue pill and go back to sleep after the training, back to the way things have always been. Jeff and his team have set up the Agile Education Program globally and community to help more organisations and people take the red pill and enhance their organisation's culture of continuous improvement and innovation with Agile. I've been fortunate to become a trainer with the Agile Education Program and community, which is brilliant. We have set up a training program and community in the Asia Pacific region and time zone linked to the Enterprise Excellence Academy and podcast. There are 3 training courses and an initial practitioner community. The first training course is Agile Scrum Master and Product Owner combined, where you can get both qualifications at once, which is training and teaching practically how to create high performance teams. The second training, Agile Scrum at Scale, is focused on training and practically building skills on how to create an agile organisation, a whole organisation that's able to move, flex and innovate rapidly. The third training, Leaders Who Serve, is focused on how to transform, lead and support an agile organisation, a really critical skill. The final, or fourth element is the Agile Practitioner Community, which is linked to the Enterprise Excellence Academy. This community is about providing ongoing support from our world's experts directly, like Jeff, and each other. The community will support more organisations taking the red pill, transforming and achieving excellence. These training courses and communities will help more organisations create agile cultures of continuous improvement and innovation, help more organisations become the Netflix of the future rather than the Blockbuster. The first cohort of training and community starts in March 2022, and they'll go cohorts ongoing from there. You and your organisation can become one of the first in the region to become part of this journey. You can also continue the journey and become a certified trainer with the Agile Education Program like me if you wish, enabling your capability to more broadly create a better future for many organisations. To register or connect with Emily and I and discuss further, go to the enterpriseexcellenceacademy.com. Please note there are limited numbers in each training cohort. If you are interested, please connect or register quickly. Let's get back to the episode. Jeff, do you mind if we explore the main components of Scrum at Scale, just at a high level? Like, what are the key parts that bolt it together and, enable us to speed up decision-making across the whole organization?
Okay, so in Scrum at Scale, we have these 2 cycles, the product owner cycle, the Scrum Master cycle. And even at the team level, the product owner's job is to double the value per point, no matter what they're doing. They're trying to get more value out there. For every point, the team creates more value. The team is trying to deliver more points. So again, this is really simple. If the product owner doubles the value per point and the team delivers twice as many points, then you have 400% more revenue. And your stock price goes up, right? And everybody's happy. The investors, the management, the teams are getting their bonuses. They're hiring all kinds of new people. It's just a really great environment. And you only have to do 2 things. The product owner makes the value per point go up, and the Scrum Master makes the number of points increase. But I can't tell you how many trainers and Agile coaches tell me, Jeff, you shouldn't talk about, increasing velocity of the Scrum teams. You should talk about value creation. But I'm like, you're on the delivery team. You're not a product owner. Your job is to run a marathon in record time. Now, if you're a product owner, then I'm going to talk about how you design that product so that it's a much better product. And you design it in a way that you can deliver at half the cost and a huge market share. That's what Toyota does. Twice the value, half the cost. And who does that? The product owners, the chief engineers. And over on the lean assembly line, they want to have very high process efficiency. But they say, all the auto manufacturers are trying to be lean today. That's not a big competitive advantage. The competitive advantage is product owners. So people need to really get that straight. The Scrum Master cycle is the teams delivering more stuff faster. And the product owner cycle is the product owners delivering the right thing, innovating faster. So you can't do that by just having one team do a little better. You have to have at the enterprise level, you have to reallocate resources.
It's neat, Jeff.
So that you can optimize the delivery. And, it's, again, a few years ago in 2019, I looked at my retirement portfolio. I said, these guys are not delivering anything. Maybe in a good year they deliver 5%, 8%. A normal year, maybe they deliver 2 or 3%. They're wasting my money. With what I know about agile companies, if I reposition those assets into areas where there are global transformations going on, I could do a lot better than these portfolio management companies and these financial advisors. And I just created a chart of what happened to show in the last product owner class. I took $1 or $2 million in 2019. Today, that's worth $70 million.
Wow.
Because I put the resources in the right place. And so at the enterprise level, the chief product owner team has got to repurpose those resources into the right places, has to shut down non-performing assets, and needs to be really aggressive. And the management team needs to be, joined at the hip with that chief product owner team and helping to drive that backlog and that restructuring of the company. That's what you really need. When we talk about agile transformation, we need to restructure the company to put all the most important assets targeted at the right thing and shutting down stuff that is no longer necessary. And that requires, first of all, to understand that if you don't do that, your competition is going to come in and disrupt you. You need a real sense of urgency, because if you don't, you will never make a decision to take this thing and put it somewhere else and shut down that thing. If you don't feel an urgent demand to do that, you will never do it. Second, you got to stop listening to the financial analysts. The financial analysts are all paid to promote the stuff that's already there, right? If you look at the financial analysts reporting on coal companies, what are they saying? We're going to need more coal companies. If you listen to the media, what are they saying? Oh, we need more energies. We're probably going to need more coal companies. And if you listen to politicians, they say, even Trump said, we got to save the coal miners.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you look at the coal curve, it's it's going to zero. The real data in real time is going to zero. And yet you hear all this nonsense. So if you believe the analysts, if you believe the media, and if you believe the politician, your company is going to self-destruct. You got to look at real data. You got to be a really critical thinker. And you got to go against the convention. That's one of the things I've learned as an investor. As I run an investment company, you got to be really clear about that. There is so much nonsense out there that can cost you money, steal your assets. You have to be a ninja on understanding what really is going on, okay? And only then can you then take action to prioritize the things that you're going to build and deprioritize the things that you're going to shut down. And do that in the right way that tries to generate value. And that's the whole purpose of the product owner cycle. And so it can't just be a product owner at a team. It needs to be a chief product owner for the organization as a whole. So for example, I had, in Silicon Valley, I had the chief product owner of Hewlett-Packard. He said, I have a $200 billion portfolio. How should I manage that? We've got thousands of projects. We came on one slide, which is in the product owner class. I think it's also in the Scrum Scale class, that shows different strategies of prioritization. And he said, I'm not doing it the best way. If I do it in the way that's in that slide, we figured out, we did a calculation. He says, my revenue could be 220 billion instead of 200 billion if I did it the way that slide recommended. And I wouldn't need any more people. I wouldn't need any more money. I would just get $20 billion more to the bottom line. He said, that one slide is worth the price of the entire course. Okay. So this is where it needs to start, right at the top. And the senior management needs to be supporting him in driving that prioritization, because if they don't, they will continue to waste that $20 billion that's just sitting on the table. So the product owner cycle in Scrum at Scale is designed to take that and drive it down through the whole organization. Similarly, on the Scrum Master cycle, it's really what you brought up before. A team has a problem. Okay, they can't fix it. Where does it go? Goes to the Scrum of Scrums. What if they can't fix it? Where does it go? One of the reasons that John Deere has done so well is, many years ago we started working with Scrum in their innovation centers around the world. They had a dozen of them. And we said you need to have an executive action team, a leadership team that's doing Scrum. They're meeting every day for 15 minutes trying to figure out what do the teams at the bottom of the hierarchy need, right? And they found that they were having trouble getting the impediments floating up. So they made a policy, and the policy was every 3 sprints, every Scrum Master needs to get one impediment to the top management, or the Scrum Master will be replaced.
That's good.
All their teams went 2-4 times fast. Some teams were 8 times faster, because the senior management was getting the impediments the same day and removing them the next day. So that is what Scrum at Scale is all about. It's not just having more teams. It's actually optimizing the whole enterprise.
Yeah. And Jeff, I love this conversation too, because, a lot of people know I've got a big background in manufacturing and supply chain. And one of the biggest challenges, or the biggest constraints, let's talk theory of constraints. So if you talk, one of the biggest theory constraint points on a lot of factories is the connection from planning to scheduling to the factory. It's more often than not broken. Planning and scheduling is just pushing down work down to the factory. the factory is just out of control trying to keep up with it. There's no logic to it. The whole product owner cycle is not connected. That one piece you described there around the product owner cycle and getting that connected from the top, focus that connects to the front line, to the factory, to create that flow and that constant improvement, but also the prioritization on value. Just instant change. And of course, the Scrum Master cycle of, are we executing? Are we on track to execute? And then what impediments do we need to flow up and get dealt with? It's such a simple model, but it overcomes it overcomes all the biggest problems that I've seen in, any organization I've worked with.
One of the things that we've seen in really big projects, the biggest projects that I've been, worked directly with are in the oil companies. And Shell, for example, built a multi-billion-dollar refinery driven by Scrum, and it came in 6 months early. So, and they usually come in like 2 or 3 years late, right?
Yeah.
So they said, wow, this really works. So now they're building they've actually announced this in the press, they're building a alternative fuel kind of refinery. And what they're doing is what they call the engineering part of it, which is figuring out how to do it, the plan for how to do it. That's all run by Scrum. And they haven't brought Scrum to the construction side itself completely. But because they get the engineering plan done in record time, and it's designed by Scrum, it turns out when you put it into action, it actually works and bring things in early, which is pretty fascinating. And what I'm trying to do is get them, you need to get all those people actually putting the buildings and pipes in place. You need to get them all scrumming, and you can probably double up on the, instead of 6 months early, you bring it in a year early, right? So construction, manufacturing. One of the most amazing things right now is these new Tesla factories. Elon is big on the machine that builds the machine. And these new factories, they're about half the size, and they produce 4 times more cars. And if you look at how they do that, they're just coming online now. Okay, so they're saying, okay, probably next year in Tesla in Texas and Berlin, we'll only get 500,000 cars like we have today with our current factories. But we know these plants are actually designed for 2 million cars.
Wow.
And one of the things he found as he tried to introduce robotics is that there were some things that people could do better, so they had to slow down the robotics. But then when they started getting hundreds of thousands of robots, it's just not a winning game with all those robots. And so they figured out this gigapress that now stamps the front of the car, the back of the car, in milliseconds. It takes milliseconds to produce the back end of a Model Y, and a few more milliseconds to produce the front end. And then, of course, the battery pack is the middle, and they just bolt it together. As soon as you produce the back end with milliseconds with this huge press, 200 robots go away. So, and Tesla, even today with their current factories, can produce a car in 10 hours, and Volkswagen takes 30 hours.
Yeah, wow.
And Tesla's 10 hours with the gigapress. It's just going to keep on going down. And, it's because of their innovation in manufacturing and just their whole approach to thinking about building. It's game over, basically, for most of the auto companies.
Yeah, they've got that real focus on absolute value and getting that focus on value. And then they've got an absolute focus too on getting faster.
Yeah. And here's an example. With the right Agile approach, you not only get faster, you get better. So that's why I get a lot of critique sometimes from the Scrum trainers. Don't make them go faster, Jeff. They'll get under pressure. They'll produce worse stuff. No. If you go faster in the right way, you're better. So when the gigapress presses the back end of the car in milliseconds, it's perfect. Every single back end of every car is exactly to the millimeter of every other one, and it's perfect. So they've cut the time, they've eliminated 200 robots, they've cut hours out of the manufacturing and collapsed it to milliseconds. And now the car is perfect. That's the way people need to think, right? Agility means you go a lot faster and the product is of much higher quality. So that's what we call innovation. That's one of the things that people have trouble with, okay? The innovation is doing it faster, but at the same time, it's better.
Yeah. It's that duality of it, isn't it? Like, I guess Toyota years ago taught that the whole quality cost delivery, you can have all three. And now it's just Agile and Scrum's just taking it to that whole new level where you can also have that faster.
Right.
I think that's been such a key insight for me through the journey, is just the level of additional speed improvements, like continuous improvement squared plus value creation, amplified.
Yeah. The other thing is the product owners doing the right thing and not supporting all ways of working that don't work. So let's just take the energy industry right now. Today, the price of a solar installation plus batteries, and I think in Australia they're figuring this out in a few areas, is less than the cost of paying for the coal they put in the coal plant. The cost of building the plant, building the solar and battery plant, plus running the plant is less than the daily cost of the coal. The same thing is true for nuclear. All nuclear plants should be shut down and replaced immediately with solar because it costs more to run. The daily operational cost of running the nuclear plant is way more than the cost of the solar implementation, both the financing, the implementation, and the production. And the same thing is true even of gas plants. But we have people in Australia. I mean, what do you pay for electricity in Australia right now? Where are you located?
I'm in Brisbane.
25 cents a kilowatt or something?
25 cents, yeah.
Okay. Solar costs you 2.6 cents a kilowatt.
Yeah.
So those bureaucrats in the utility, supported by the government, are, eating your wallet alive. They're taking, for every 2 cents of electricity they should be paying, they're taking 24 cents from you for the privilege of nothing, the privilege of nothing. So the people need to wake up.
Yeah, the standout for us, Jeff,
I know in Australia you guys are demonstrating on the streets for health freedom. You need to get out there on the coal plant shutdown, right? Yeah. So that you pay 2 cents for electricity instead of 24 cents.
Yeah. The South Australia is leading the way, Jeff. Like, South Australia has done some amazing stuff with Tesla, so they've, and quite innovative too. So South Australia's created a power plant by putting solar panels and batteries into housing commission homes. So, the low income people who need housing, they've given those people free electricity, which created like a power plant by the time you put this all over the city and all over the region. But they've also given free electricity, lower cost electricity to those people that most need it. It's an amazing win-win outcome. But they're they're charging along on this path of green energy. So the great thing is we've got a case study of a state doing amazing things.
That's great. Yeah, that's another thing about doing Agile really well. So, for example, Rocket Mortgage, when they made Safe Run 4 times faster, and they could deliver every day. When the COVID lockdown came, their headquarters is in the city of Detroit, and Detroit said, we need a system for testing people for COVID. And so the senior management at Rocket Mortgage says, we can build that system. We'll give them a couple of teams for a week. They did 2.5 day sprints, and the system was running.
Wow.
So it's like, if you do this right, giving the poor people free electricity, it's not a problem. It's a no-brainer. But if you have the management, both the people in the government and the utilities, holding on to this old mindset, those poor people are going to be cold in the winter. That's what it does to them, right? And so that is criminal. They need to be straightened out. The only way they're going to be straightened out is for the people to wake up and realize agility, Scrum Scale, it's important for me to have heat in my house in the winter.
Yeah, it all interconnects, doesn't it? I think that's why I love being involved in this field so much, because through, creating cultures of innovation and continuous improvement, you can create such outcomes for people's lives.
Yeah.
Like, it's massive. Like for me, my focus is a lot, by helping organizations, you help so many people within those organizations, and then they go home and that spreads through the community. But like you said, Jeff, through that example of what Tesla's done and into Adelaide in Australia or South Australia, you're helping, people that need the help even more deeply.
What a great episode. Thanks again, Jeff. Remember, we are now bringing to the Asia Pacific region the opportunity for you to get trained and certified by Jeff's Agile Education Program and connect to the associated community. Together, we will help our own organization and others truly transform to create a culture of continuous improvement and innovation. We will do this by working directly with our world's experts like Jeff and also supporting each other. We have the training and a community in English and Mandarin. Anyone registering for courses automatically gets 6 months free entry to the community and also resource library. You also get access to our time optimization program to help you break out of the whirlwind, gain back time, and enable you to focus on what is most important. This is critical in first of all freeing you up to then more effectively lead your excellence journey. These additional value offerings more than cover the cost of a course. We've also optimized the community approach to minimize time impact on members. The community runs for 2 hours each month via Zoom. The first hour is training and Q&A on a topic with one of our world's leading experts. The second hour enables us to collaborate and help each other on our excellence journey. Help each other sustain focus, overcome challenges, and move forward. You will also be able to progress forward and become an Agile education program trainer in the future and help others more broadly create a better future if this is of interest to you. The Enterprise Excellence Academy and podcast is a social enterprise. Profits go to charities that help socially, economically, or environmentally create a better future for our world. There are limited numbers with each training cohort. If you're interested, please connect or register quickly on our website, enterpriseexcellenceacademy.com. I look forward to meeting many of you and growing together to create a better future. I look forward to talking further with Jeff next episode. Bye for now.